Years ago, like over a decade ago, the first video that I produced for YouTube talked about bid numbers and bid paddles. I'm going to revisit that today because I've got new examples, but also I think I've gotten a little bit better at doing videos. So hopefully this will be a little bit more animated than the first video that I ever shot. So to begin with, the good news is that you do not need to spend a lot of money in order to have a great experience with a bid number. You do not have to have it professionally designed. You don't have to have accoutrements. You don't even need a stick on it in order for it to work. At the auction, you will not raise more money if you have a fancy bid paddle. So let's make sure that what we're sharing with our auctioneer is just effective, but not necessarily expensive. So to that end, let's get started and showing you some paddles that I don't really like, and I'll explain why. Actually, before I even start, I should bring to your attention that this is a paddle. This piece of paper is a paddle, but this is a number. So when we're looking at something like this is also a paddle, right? It's got a stick. And this is the bid number. Both of them are paddles, but the number is really what's the most important part from the standpoint of the auction. The reason being is that the auction can't carry forward until the number is said. So if I say sold for $4,000 to bidder number, I can't read that, right? I've got a volunteer. Usually I'm working with volunteers. I got a volunteer. They've started to walk away from the table. The bidders are hugging each other. They're not paying attention to what's going on. But until we write down the bid number and who won it, we can't move the auction forward. So the clearer that number is, the better, because what's going to happen in that situation is they have to go back, and let's say that it's a really small number. You know, that here it is. We're in a huge room and this is the number and I can't read this. So they're carrying it forward. The volunteers are pretty much handing it to me and I'm going, oh, $4,000 to bidder 200. That takes time. We want easy to read numbers. So that being said, let's go ahead and go through some numbers that could stand for some improvements. Let's start by talking about color. The easiest color combination to read is going to be dark lettering on a light background, ideally black on white or black on yellow. What you do not want to do is reverse that. Here's an example. See how this is a dark blue background with light font? All of these, very hard to read when you get further away and in a dark ballroom. Plus, they've got all of this embellishment around here, which starts to be confusing as you get far away. We don't need to make these pretty, people. They just need to be effective. The other challenge with this is depending on the font, sometimes you can start running into problems because 6s look like 9s when they're upside down. 1s can look like 7s. And pretty soon you might be calling out a number that is not even accurate. It looks right from the distance as it's held upside down, but it's the wrong number. Instead of 717, it's 171 kind of thing. So this can be pretty challenging because of the color combination. Also the embellishments. Now this isn't too bad, but just for an example, I will show it. See how this has got some extra stars around it here, kind of around the edge, all that. It's not too bad. I mean, from a distance, it's not nearly as bad as the other one I showed you, but again, you don't need it. And the reality is that embellishment is in red font. I think this was at least a 2-color print, which means that they paid more money for it and they're not making more money from it. You know, so I wouldn't go to that much extreme when you're talking about trying to add embellishments. Don't worry about it. It's not going to help you. Another challenge. This paddle is great. Woo, nice paddle. But it's handwritten. We can't do handwriting for these bid numbers. I mean, this, you get far away from this, you're not going to be able to read that at all. And the other challenge is that at registration, some people will write a number that big, other people will write it this big. Some will use a big fat Sharpie, others will use a pencil. And so this quickly becomes lost in order trying to use it for a really effective bid number. Another suggestion is to not do letters. Now, I advocate a 3-digit bid number or a 4-digit bid number. They used A409. I would say, let's just go with 409. And you'd also similarly don't want to just go with a single digit like this. This in particular was too small, although the heaviness of the font is fine. The reality is that this was a pretty big room of 450, 500 people, and you're not going to be able to see this in that kind of a space. So from the standpoint of a small room, this would work, but you really want to have at least a 3-digit bid number, if not a 4-digit bid number for that. Another challenge of bid numbers that could be better, or bid paddles that could be better. All of these share the same challenge. Okay, we'll see. Oh, there we go. You see how that light is playing on these? If you have a special coating on these in order to protect them, it can actually catch the light and make it really challenging to read these from a distance. So be careful of putting any special coatings on your bid paddles. It can make it hard for the auctioneer to read them. And then finally, just making sure that your size is effective. This, I get it. They wanted something small that they could put in a pocket. I'll show you some better examples here in a second. But although I like the font and I like the heaviness of this, this is only going to work for a very small room, very small crowd size. Same with this one. Even though the color combination is great, it's pretty small for a larger room. So you just have to weigh how many people do we have coming and what's going to be effective. Now, with that said, let's turn to some paddles, and even good paddles, but also some creative ways that you can get more out of your paddle. Starting with all. Now, I like this because on both sides of the paddle, we have the number, which makes it really easy for the auctioneer because the bidders are just throwing their paddle up, and regardless of which way they're facing, the auctioneer will be able to see it. But what I specifically want to point out is, see how they've got an underline under that number? That's helpful. We don't run into any of those problems I mentioned earlier with 7s looking like 1s and 6s looking like 9s. So I like that part of it. Now, even though this is shiny, what is kind of nice about this is they included artwork from the students on the back. So if you're doing anything like that, or maybe there's an award that's given out and that's the logo or the theme that you go with, as a student produced that, you may want to have something like that on it, but just avoid those coatings on the piece of paper. But that's a nice way to use the back of the bid paddle if you're not going to put a number on it. Another thing that you can do is you can put the auction rules. We've got all of the live auction, silent auction, how to pay for things. That's a good use of space on the back of the bid paddle. Another example, look at that. Love this big, bold number. It's got the sponsor logo up here in the corner. But what I really like too is that guests can follow along in the order of the live auction items. Now, oops, it's like that. Got that upside down. It doesn't have the full descriptions on it and all the restrictions and all of that, but it's just a quick, handy way for people to follow along so they know where, what are we? Oh, wow, whiskey tasting for 8. That sounds pretty good. And then they can, bid on that appropriately. Now, if you are honoring somebody, this is pretty spectacular. First, I love this bid paddle. Look at how nice and big that is. Easy to read this. Here we've got the table number, bid number, name of the person. But on the back, look, they've got their honoree. That's kind of nice. So if you've got an honoree and you want to honor them in a kind of a big splashy way, this might be kind of fun. I think this is the only example of a bid paddle I have that, look how thick this is. This is styrofoam in here. So on this side, they've got a bigger number, and then they've got a smaller logo for the sponsor. And on this side, it's a bigger sponsor logo and a smaller number. So the number is on both sides. Obviously, as an auctioneer, I prefer this side, but that is something that might be something that might grab you. Speaking of this, sponsors getting extra attention, this is a more typical example of what I see. We've got the bid paddle here, nice big number on this, easy to read. And then on the back, the entire back is devoted to the sponsor. And this can be something that maybe it's an underwriter for the auctioneer. And one of the benefits of underwriting the cost of the auctioneer is that you get your logo on the back of the bid paddle. That might be something, or this might be something that's just sold separately too. As a flat fee, your logo goes on the back of the bid paddle. In fact, I want to say that's what this group did, is that every year they've got a realtor who likes to buy a sponsorship so that she gets her logo on the bid paddle. Now, I don't like the handwritten number over here, but if you're looking for visibility, I mean, she's getting quite a bit of visibility there on the bid paddle. Another nice example of bid paddles are these. Now, I'm partial to this one because my company name is Red Apple Auctions, and this is an apple. But again, you don't make more money when you pay for a fancy bid paddle like this. If you're going to do something like this, I'd say make sure that you're collecting the bid paddles so that you can use them year after year after year. You know, this was used for a public school. This may have been used for a public school foundation too. They may have been from the same event. I can't even remember anymore. But, you know, these are nicer. They're kind of made out of that plasticky material that you see real estate signs made out of. Nothing on the back. So it would have been nice to utilize the back of this bid paddle for something, sponsorships, selling at the space, putting a live auction on the back, whatever, maybe just the number again. But it is a nice paddle and it's certainly an easy to read number for this. Easiest to read number I think that I've got bid paddle that I probably have is this one. Again, that color combination is strong, as is the lettering itself, the font. So certainly like that. Now, some people like to have something where they can put in their jacket pockets. I mentioned that earlier. This is an event I just worked a couple of weeks ago in Chicago. Nice number there, very easy to read on the back of this pamphlet. So this is what was handed out at registration. It's got the live auction items in it, a bit of the program, what's going to happen, who to thank, all of that sort of thing. But then on the back is the number, so people can put that in their suit jacket pockets. Similarly, but a little bit different, is this event from New York City. This was a year or so ago. Bigger program here, bigger size. You can see that. Let me just put these side by side so you can see them a little bit. See that size difference. But this has the live auction descriptions in it, along with where you can make a pledge directly. The numbers on the back, and then this is pretty darn nice. If you've got a big room and people are going to have trouble figuring out where to sit, they put a diagram on the back and then we're able to circle where the guest was seated. This was a 2-level event, so knowing where you are in a big room like that, it could be helpful to your guests. So that might be something that you want to emulate, is shrink that down, put that on your bid paddle and then circle it. So, you know, oh, you're seated at table 50. Where's table 50? Oh, there I am. You can go find it. So that's a great example of creativity right there. Carrying on with using the bid number in a program format. Here's a little bigger. Now, this is not, you know, like this one is going to go in the suit jacket pocket. This one won't. This is a regular program on the table as the guests walk in. And then on the back, whoa, doggy, look at that pretty number. Now, what you might notice is that this is a 0. I still would call this out in the auction. Remember, I said I like to use 3 digits. I would say 034. Now, I guess I could say 34, but when we're in the mode of calling out these numbers and our clerk is writing them down, it's usually better to have the same cadence. So it's 137, 682, 034. I always say it, the bid number twice, but in that example, I didn't. But that is why, even though it's a 0, it would be verbalized by the auctioneer. Here's another great bid paddle and number. Pretty simple piece of paper, kind of a cardstocky material. This is something that you could create in-house. It's so easy, and it's such a great bid number. I love that. Love it. Here's one that I did in Georgia earlier this year. They chose to put on the front or back of their bid paddle their theme, blues, brews, and barbecue. And then voila, on the back, this. Now, this is not that big, but it was a room that was very small. I don't know, maybe 120 people, you know, so this worked out okay for them. And then here they have on the stick part, they actually put the name of the guest. So that's how they had it set up at registration. Here's one that big number there, easy to read that. We've got our sponsor logo here, one of our sponsor logos. Maybe they underwrote the auctioneer, I don't remember. And then on the back, we've got the evening schedule and a list of the live auction items. No descriptions of the items, just a list, but that's pretty handy to have that right there too. It's like, oh, what do we got going on here? What's next? Oh, well, there you go. Live auction. Okay. All right. There it is. And I think did I show this earlier already? This is a kind of a nice way to honor the sponsor, Monarch Bank. How cute. And then they've got a monarch butterfly for the paddle. So that's pretty fancy schmancy there. Now, that might be a one-time use paddle, because if Monarch Bank doesn't, you know, sponsor the next year, then this is going to go in the trash, unfortunately. And it's a big plastic paddle. But if, you know, depending on who sponsors your event, you may be willing to invest pretty in heavy duty bid paddles, even though it's a one-time use one. You can hear that one. Pretty solid right there. Hopefully that gave you a great rundown of what you should be looking for in your bid paddles. You can go online and learn through Word how to print out bid paddles. If you're my client, I can send you the instructions for that. The point being is that, again, it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be something that is legible for the auctioneer from a distance. If you found value out of this video or any of the videos that I produce, please share it, like it, subscribe to the channel, whatever the case might be. It certainly helps the channel grow and get good content out for other auction planners around the world, or at least the United States. I'm Sherry with Red Apple Auctions. As always, good luck to you in your fundraising auction. Bye.